many individuals that claim to be outdoorsmen or outdoors women, and they are conservative, are really some big punks.
Welcome to the Unfiltered Outdoors. Today's an episode that you don't want to miss. We're going to have some great conversations about navigating a career in the outdoors as a Black individual, helping young people find their passion in the outdoors, and what it's like to be a mentor at Hunters of Color. I'm Tony Airy, co-hosting alongside Kenny, and we're pumped to introduce our first guest on the Unfiltered Outdoors podcast. Kenny, before we introduce our guest, tell us your unfiltered thoughts on this person without giving away who they are.
Man, he's like my childhood's wildest dream. Like he's not a real human if you ask me, because we don't have, in my head, there's no such thing as a Black biologist. Um, there's no such thing as a Black man who works closely with the land, who works closely with animals, in the way that this man does. A writer. Man, so much. I'm just excited to have this man here on the podcast. That's my unfiltered without giving too much information away.
Yeah, well, let's just dive into it. So today we have a well-known wildlife biologist, a birder, nature enthusiast who pours all of his passion into sharing the outdoors with others. He's an author of the most perfect kids introductory books to critters within their state, an incredible wildlife photographer, and the 2025 Hunters of Color East Ambassador of the Year. If you know him, you love him. Welcome to the Unfiltered Outdoors, Alex Troutman.
What's good, y'all? Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I got the pleasure to meet Alex for the first time this past November. We had kind of a leadership training for our mentors, ambassadors, and staff. And the thing that I love about Alex is he is so passionate about the outdoors. By the time that everybody else was waking up, Alex was coming back in and say, "Hey guys, we just got some incredible shots of some birds out while I was out and about." So it was really cool to see that. And then on the backside of that trip, I'm on my plane ride on the way home, and then we get a text from Alex say, "Hey, here's some of the pictures that I grabbed." Just phenomenal. Like the quality of the photos, and like you could tell just behind the camera, like how much you really care about the outdoors and birding, Alex. So talk to us a little bit about just kind of how your passion developed for the outdoors and kind of where it all started for you.
Yeah, so for me, I like to say like I was pretty much destined to be a wildlife biologist. My last name is Troutman, so it's almost like that's what my calling was gonna be when I was born. But for me, I grew up, my family, like they were blessed that we own our own house and land. So I grew up playing in the backyard, chasing water lizards, which are salamanders, but at the time there was neither water. They look like lizards, so I call them water lizards. I Yeah, me and my friend, we would have a competition who can catch the most fish in my creek. We would dam it up and let it pull and try to go for some of the brim that was down there in the creek. And then I grew up on all things nature. I had zoo books, wild animal facts, DK Discovery. I had a little CD-ROM, put that in there, and list like all the animals of the world, the sounds. So I would listen to that and play with that pretty much every day. And then around that time, I started getting more into nature. I found out about Jack Hanna, Seaver, and Jeff Corin, like three amazing wildlife biologists and conservationists. And like that's when I knew I wanted to do something in nature. I wanted to be a wildlife biologist, but at that time, there was nobody who looked like me being a wildlife biologist. All those people are white. I'm Black, and the only people who represented me or was like a mirror to what people working with animals look like that were Black were either working as a farmer or been a vet. So I thought I was going to be a vet. That's what path I had chose. And even like growing up, I was there like 20 minutes from multiple national park units and about 10 minutes from a wildlife or a state park. And there was no black people and any other natural resource areas at those parks. So that's why I thought I would be a vet as well. And I went to school, studied, and just to become a vet. Went to high school, helped to run and start a nonprofit that got animals. Sorry, let me restart. I helped to run a nonprofit that got homeless pets adopted, and we volunteer at the shelter. And then I finally graduated high school and went to college. And within my first couple of weeks there, I realized that being a vet wasn't going to be for me, because you have to have a strong mental capacity, because vets are usually one of the last peoples in the room when animals are put down. Then they also are dealing with like external stressors as well as business stressors, with the amount of finances you need to run your own office, as well as the time you have to put in into being a vet. It creates forces in your family that I didn't want to deal with. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be a vet anymore. I'm going to go do middle grades education. I love kids. I love teaching. So I was like, I'll do that. So I switched my major to middle grades education and minor in biology. And I did that for about a year. And during that time, I was still taking biology courses because I was a minor in bio. And I took 2 field courses, which allowed me to get outside and study and work with animals. And they were ornithology, which is the study of birds, and mammalogy, the study of mammals. And we're researching animals and like capturing them and putting ear tags on them, weighing some small rodents. And then ornithology, it was all about birds. So I finally learned what birding or bird watching is. I have been doing it all my life, but never knew the technical term for it. But that class allowed me to find that term. And that's when I realized, like, you know what? This is possible. It's possible to like be outside all day and study animals and get paid to do it. So I switched my major back to biology with a focus on wildlife management, and decided, like, you know what, I'm gonna make it work regardless. So I went to continue my biology courses, and many times I was one, if not the only person of color, and many times the only black person in those courses, learning about wildlife law, vertebrate anatomy, and different other subjects, and that I ended up making it work. And like, to give a little backstory, like my nature, like passion that centered from like with my friends in my backyard, but also my dad and brothers. We went fishing a lot, and I have ADHD. So many times while we were fishing, I was distracted by all the other animals. Like my spark bird, it's a red-tailed hawk, which at that time I just thought was a bird that I really liked. I didn't know it was a correct name for a bird that like sparks your passion for birding. So I just saw the red-tailed hawk, and it really looked like it's my version of a phoenix, because when it was flying through the air, like the sun would shine through its red tail and it looked like it was on fire. So that was my spark bird that I would watch while I was fishing. And then across from me, there would be great blue herons that was laughing at me because I wasn't catching anything. But they would, but they would be catching stuff, and like right across from me, pick up some brim, eat it, and then almost like laugh, and then fly off like, I got something, you still sitting here. So yeah, it was crazy. But that's how I grew up. And then eventually I got my degree in biology. Then I went on to work for almost 7 years as a wildlife biologist. with different federal agencies as well as private firms. My first job right out of college was working as a park ranger with a couple of county parks in Pittsburgh, where I got to really dive into science communication and figure out that I had a knack for that. So telling people about science, and I got to work with a lot of school groups talking about the birds and the bees, but in a different way, talking about how the birds are good for us and how they fly and their defense mechanism. But talk about how bees, they pollinate, that they give us many other foods that we eat, as well as other pollinators. Like a lot of people may not know that a pollinator that is a mammal is a bat. There's a bat, Mexican free-tailed bat, pollinate the evaluated plant. If you like tequila, thank that bat for that. But a lot of people are like misinformed about bats, thinking that they're rats with wings, but they're totally different. But they are amazing.
Yeah, and two things. One, like what I gathered from you is you always knew what you wanted to do. That there was that barrier that the industry placed on how white the industry was. So like that barrier being like you said from like the very beginning, like you knew that you wanted to be in the outdoors all the time. You knew that you wanted to be a biologist, but when you looked around at the industry itself, there was just that very white barrier that said, yeah, I'm not sure. And then you had examples of, Black leaders in your community that are working somewhat in the space, but not really in the lane that you really wanted to be in. And I think sometimes that catches us. Like when we look around and say, okay, like what are other people that look like me successful at? That's what I'm going to go to, rather than here's what I really want to do and here's how I want to do it. I'm just going to go for it. And while I love that you wound up where you wound up, like also like I feel for you, man. Like it sucks to hear that you knew what you wanted to do, but you had to try out so many different paths just to wind up at the place where you said, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to go for her. So number one, kudos for you for just absolutely going for it, because that's an example that I think that we can use. And that's what I hope that listeners learn today, is that maybe we do have some young listeners just say, hey, this is what I want to do, but I'm not seeing a ton of people out there. Now they have an Alex. They have somebody that said, hey, Alex spent a couple extra years trying to bounce around the journey in school to figure out what he wanted to do, even though he knew what he wanted to. Maybe I'll just skip that and use Alex as my example. But also the other thing I want to touch on too is you talked a little bit about being an educator and kind of your love for kids of wildlife. And that kind of turned into an opportunity for you to author a series of books. So walk me through a little bit about what, kind of how that came about and what that process looked like for you.
Yeah, so I'm the author of about 15 books. They're called Critters Field Guides, or actually Critters Pocket Guides to Animals of Your State. And each state has about 65 critters in it that range from birds to amphibians and reptiles and mammals. And each account per animal has a did you know fact, followed by information about the animal that includes like track size, if it migrates, where it can be found at various times of the year, and then a cool little picture about it. And that started out like around 2021. I was a part of the group. Actually, some backtracking. In 2020, I was working with a lot of different people connected in the outdoor spaces that were Black individuals. We were different Black enthusiasts, and we all were in a group chat that started on Twitter, and then eventually it went to GroupMe. And around that same time, we were forming our group. Two unfortunate events happened. One was the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, and then the second one was the calling of the police on a black birder in Central Park. by a white woman. She basically did some performative tears and lied and said that he was like harassing and hurting her. All he did was ask her to put her dog on a leash in a area that required your dog to be leashed while he was bird watching. And those two events inspired us to create Black Birders Week, a week that highlights and amplifies Black people who enjoy nature and looking at birds, but also lets people know, like, this isn't an isolated incident. Like, it happens to us many different times, from just running in your own neighborhood, like Ahmaud Arbery, to being in your research area and then question if you belong in that area, or them calling the police and saying you look like you're up to no good when you're literally wearing waders and carrying supplies in the marsh.
Like, man, I'm up to the same good that you're up to.
Yeah, exactly. So all of these events created Black Birders Week, and from Black Birders Week, my social presence really took off from me just talking about what I did and why I'm passionate about nature. So a couple of publishers reached out to me, asking me to think about writing some books, and I went through talking to a couple, and then finally found Adventure King, which is my publisher now, and they had the best team that was very understanding of the social issues that I was proud to defend and fight for, and they really allowed me to be myself when writing these books and not try to hide who I am. So that's why I went with Adventure King as my publisher for these books. Now, these books are a new edition for some of the states that had already been written a couple years ago, probably over a decade ago, and then I've been able to revamp some of the stakes and then create new stakes for this project.
Now, you mentioned, the okay, so I have to ask, because you've got this observation, right? Like, you're watching animals, you're very much you care about animals. How do you feel then about hunting, right? Like, how does that play a role in this? Because I feel like as a biologist, you're supposed to care about the animals and protect the animals, and you're doing everything that you can, and you're watching them and documenting them. But now you're also, participating in taking the animal's life. Do you ever feel like there's a conflict there with the work that you're doing by being a hunter?
To answer your question, no, I don't think there's a conflict, because I understand that for me, one, as a biologist, I understand management practices, and by harvesting these animals, I understand that some of these animals are overpopulated, especially here in Dreadjail. Our deer are extremely overpopulated, which could lead to more diseases as well as human wildlife conflicts in the form of vehicle strikes. Many different people get struck by deers or hit deers when driving. So I understand that for me as a biologist, by hunting and managing these numbers, I'm helping to control the population from reaching levels where they could either get sick and die, but also help limit diseases that may spread, and then also helping to control human wildlife conflict and people from getting injured with deer strikes. So that's the way I look at it. And when I harvest animals, like, I'm not just going for trophy animals, the biggest rack, the biggest hinds. I'm gonna hunt that animal because I want to feed my family, and I'm gonna utilize every part of the animal, as much as the animal that I can use. For instance, like when hunting quail, quail or pheasants or even geese, like, some people, what they do is very in my opinion, wasteful. They just breast out the animals and leave everything else. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take every ounce, take the breast, um, take as much as meat as I can, use the bones and skin, turn that into stock. And then for the offal, I'm going to cut that up, grind it up, make some dirty rice with that. Trying to utilize as much as that animal as possible because it sacrificed its life in order to feed me and my family. So I'm going to honor it in that way by using as much as it as I can. And I'm trying to teach that practice to other people as well. And that's, for me, that's why I think, like, for me, I am a hunter, and why, as a biologist, why I love these animals. I know in some instances it is necessary that we have to take care of them and harvest them. Then that's the same thing for me. And with some animals are invasive species, and they are negatively impacting other animals that are supposed to be here and supposed to thrive. And I understand that those animals has to be eradicated and killed in a humane manner as well. So it's all, for me, it's about the check and balances. And once you do harvest an animal, being thankful and utilizing every part of the animal, and again, not just going for the animal that has the biggest breath or is the largest animal.
Did you hunt that way when you first started out, or was it like, as the longer you became deeper and deeper into the work that you do as a biologist, then you're like, okay, I gotta start treating these animals with a little bit more respect?
So I always have hunted that way. So I got into hunting at a later age. I always wanted to do hunting, but no one around me hunted that was in my family. And I had friends, white friends that hunted, and they would always say, "Oh yeah, why don't you come hunt?" They would say that I can come hunt with them and offer it, but it was more so, in my opinion, a way to save their own face, like, "Oh, I offer it." But no one ever, like, actually took me hunting until I was in college. I randomly met a group of individuals that were from Macon, Georgia, when I was doing some kids work in Alaska, and they was talking about, like, hunting and stuff, and they said you should come. So I called them out on it. I was like, all right, well, take me. And then that following October, they actually took me out and hunting. I got my first deer. But I always had that presence of, like, for me, it's loving wildlife first, being respectful, and then harvesting the animal. Like, I'm not gonna make any shot that I know is not gonna humanely put the animal down, or I won't be able to successfully retrieve the animal and that meat goes away. So if I'm gonna make a shot, it's gonna be a pretty much guarantee that the animal is gonna go down, and I will be able to successfully collect the animals that I harvested.
Yeah, so something that we're continuously learning, and even right now, is how well you communicate nature and the outdoors and kind of your perspective. And we see you utilize that a lot as an ambassador for Hunters of Color. So talk to me a little bit about, like, your approach in communicating to people who are new to the space, because you just do it so well. And I think a lot of us, like, when we have these skill sets and these knowledge, and we want to be able to approach new people or to have conversation with new people, we want it to be effective. But I feel like sometimes we fail to do that. So what is, like, most important when communicating nature, the outdoors, hunting, wildlife to somebody who's completely new to the space?
I would definitely say your passion for it. Like, letting people experience your passion for it, and then giving them an exposure. So exposing them to not just, like, hunting, but exposing them to first nature, or to guns, and then going into hunting. Some individuals that I have worked with they did not want to be out in nature. They were scared of bugs and insects. But I was like, hey, let's take a nature walk, or let's go birding, and then that and eventually led them to like, hey, this is okay. Like, what do you think about going like to a different park that's farther out, or what do you think about going camping? It's like, I'll go camping, but I don't want to stay in a tent. Okay, well they have yurts, they have cabins that we can modify the camping experience, and then once they're have it, excuse me, once they have like experienced that, then stepping it up and modifying it and going to a deeper level. So it starts with just again that exposure. Some people like may never want to actually harvest animal. They might just want to sit in a stand and see what it's about, or they want to harvest animal, but they never even heard a gunfire outside of TV. So just giving the exposure to the sounds, or knowing that some guns have a little kickback. So give them the experience that. That's true right now for my wife. She eventually wants to hunt, but right now, deer are too cute for her. So we have to find something that she doesn't think is as cute. And she definitely needs a gun with a little less kickback. So we're going to start off with shooting animals that are not as cute as deer, as Bambi, so to speak, and then work our way up. And it may be the case where she never wants to harvest a deer, but right now she is still willing to go out in the field with me. She's going to the range and just getting that experience. So it's all about meeting people where they are, getting on their level, and make sure that they're comfortable, and building on that step by step, and not just throwing them out there and say, all right, go get a deer, and you never even talk to them about like any safety issues, or what happens when you get a deer, or like like what did I do if I'm in my stand and I have to use the bathroom, like, can I get back down and go back up, or what? Like, no, you don't want to do that. Like, so it's introducing them so that they can enter it on as much as a level playing field as you did, and then also like your passion, like as Zeus. So if people see you're passionate about it, they're more likely to be interested. But if you are just going out there like, yeah, I do hunting, or yeah, I go bird watching, like, instead of like, oh yeah, let me show you this great bird I saw. Did you know this bird is only here throughout the fall and spring migrations? Otherwise, it lives in South America. So yeah.
Yeah, I get like this sense of like your absolute care and passion for the work that you get to do is cool, like listening to you talk about this. Now when you started hunting, right? Because you're a late onset hunter, myself, I am as well. Do you feel like you started out almost at an advantage because you have all of this experience with being a biologist and studying animals, or do you feel like becoming a hunter like made you a better biologist, or vice versa? Like, which one do you feel is kind of stands more out to you?
I think it's a little of both in different situations, depending on the species that I have interacted with and hunted. So for deer, when my first hunt was on a private land, I didn't have to go too far to like actually track the animal or anything. I was in a stand and in a food plier that there's gonna be guaranteed deer was gonna come through. I just had to pretty much wait for them, and then I was able to harvest something. Whereas with other hunts, it was was a waiting game, waiting and learning the different techniques. And I used to suck at shotguns. So it's a different experience between looking in a scope versus down the eye, and then being able to like shoot more towards something that's level or on the ground versus something that's flying over you, and learning about being a stand by yourself and being in the A-frame with other people and trying to swing. So it's a lot of different techniques, and then just with birds, they're flying, so they move a lot different than deer, and you don't really, with the birds, is not really worried about them like getting broadside, whereas with deer, like that's the shot you want. So it's just learning all those different locomotions that these animals have, and quail fly a lot faster than the heavier birds, bro. The pheasants and geese. So it's learning all those techniques and being able to study and knowing like the patterns. Like for instance, like some birds when they get off the ground, they're flying straight up, whereas others are flying out at an angle and then coming up. So being able to learn that, and like I have been able to have experience with flushing a lot of pheasants when I was working in Wisconsin. As a biologist, I wasn't hunting anything, but that was just utilizing our waterfowl production areas. And so I had a lot of experience being able to look at time, looking at the pheasants, fly up, scare me half to death a couple of times, because sometimes they wait till you right up on them and then and go. So being able to watch their takeoff versus going out in the field with quail and watching them, like you can see the different techniques that you need. So that's why I say it's a little of both. Like some of it was like the hunter in me made me better at watching wildlife, but other times it was the wildlife biologist that made me a better hunter and knowing like the different flight patterns of birds. And then once I started like learning more about hunting on myself and not just getting introduced to it, it was learning about the different food types that deer are eating, looking different, looking at those signs, the shapes, and then as well as like a lot of my passions and hobbies have built on like hunting. So now I'm also a certified wildlife tracker. So I'm able to track and distribute these wildlife signs in many different habitats across the U.S. So like hunting is like something that you can continue to build upon. Like it's not one person that is a hunter that can say, oh, like I know everything, I'm gonna do the same thing every way, every year,
every place you go.
Right, yeah, exactly.
It's funny though, because it's like even just hearing your journey, I feel like that's the traditional trajectory of someone who gets excited about hunting. Like there's no like when you're truly excited about hunting, it takes over in so many different aspects of your life. And so you've kind of gone down that same journey of being like, I like hunting. Now what? Now I'm going to learn to track animals. Now I'm going to learn to do this and do this. And it's like it's making you better at your job, and it's making you a better hunter, so then you can have more successful harvest. So it's funny to hear that. And I'm like, when I think about I get the opportunity to film a lot of hunters. And when I think about some of the best hunters, they're like the best, like biologists, they think about game in such a different way. And it's like thinking about their food, where they're going to move, how they move. And so even just hearing you talk about, your experiences being in Wisconsin and all these different places, and the way that you've taken all that information, all those lessons, and applied it to your hunting, I'm like, dang, I need to start thinking about it more as a biologist and less as a person that's just trying to harvest animals. And I'll probably be a better hunter because of that. So
Yeah, so I want to dive into a little bit of a different topic. And it kind of stems from why Hunters of Color was created in the first place. So people of color have an incredible set of experiences in the outdoors. So as a black man, can you share some of the experiences that you faced, those that are disappointing and that are encouraging?
Yeah, I definitely just start off with like again growing up like living next to state parks and national parks as well as even Zoo Atlanta. Like there was no black people working with any animals or any science positions. So that was like one experience growing up, and then like um, being a wildlife biologist in Wisconsin, I was the only black person in my office. Um, One of few black persons in my town, and then even then, um, inside of that town, it was different as well because some of the individuals there were immigrants. So they had just came, so a lot of them still didn't understand like American and black culture. So it was still like a little isolating even there, even though we had some of the same like skin color, we still couldn't connect on culturally yet. But for me, when I was in Wisconsin, that like is kind of like pretty much like almost like changed my, not really gonna say trajectory, but change how outspoken I was because I had to stand up for myself in many different ways. But then I realized like I'm not only like standing up for myself, and I'm also standing up for my last name, Troutman, but also the other individuals, black and people of color, that's going to come to this town and come to this office and work for the agency that I work with. So I had to make sure that I was giving over 110%, make sure that I'm not going to leave, so to speak, bad taste or bad, was it, impression reference on individuals who would come after me that are black and people of color. And then like even with that, like I like I'll tell you a couple stories. Like one instance, I was working with the federal agencies, and we took our truck to get weighed, make sure it was at standard for government. And someone seen my uniform on. It's a federal it's a U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I was wearing federal U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service agency. And the first thing they said to me, oh, like, what you're doing there, are you in maintenance? Like, the only
Jesus.
level that I can attain as a black man in a federal agency is a maintenance worker. No disrespect to any of the maintenance worker, like, they do a lot of great work that help contribute to conservation. But for me as a biologist, like that, like was the first ceiling that they try to place on me was like, oh, like, are you in maintenance? But then they was upset and try to like back off on. I said, oh no, actually, I want a biologist. And I work for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and it was like, oh, okay, sorry, you should go and stock this pond here. I was like, well, actually, that's the state DNR. Again, I'm a feral biologist. We are working with endangered species. And he was like turned around. But another case in Wisconsin as well, like I was in my uniform and I was doing boundary data and fixing up some of our signs that haven't shied up. And first he questioned, he was like, let me see some ID. You don't belong in here. I was like, what do you mean? Like, you can't get this uniform from Goodwill. It was just baffling. So those like two experiences that I experienced as a young kid. Well, not really a young kid, but a young man right out of college in Wisconsin, which is like 1,000 miles from Georgia. They're knowing one. And then other experiences working in the marsh. Like I had people that stopped and watched me in the marsh. police like came and after someone called and waited for me to get out march to like question me and ask what I'm doing here. Like they don't see the university vehicle with a big logo on it. I'm gonna question like what I'm doing here. So then they don't believe like, yes, I'm looking for birds and this tall ass grass. Oh, can I say that? I don't. I'm looking for
Unfiltered podcast. Unfiltered.
Oh yeah, we're unfiltered. So I'm looking for birds in this tall ass grass. Like what do you mean? Like if I should be here? Like here, let me show you my research permits. Like yes, that is my name on there. Like they don't just hand these out. It's like come on. So it's definitely been the interesting sort of life I'm dealing with being in the outdoors as a black man. Especially working in a federal agency, and as a hunter, it's on a different scale as well. Because like here in Georgia, like we have public land that the public land is not always the best place to be because there's people who have familiar claims for their family has been hunting that public land, so they think it's theirs. So it's more of an issue of finding public land that you're able to hunt. And like for me, I don't hunt alone. I always have at least one other person with me, and then my family always have my location. And just because like I don't feel comfortable doing that here in Georgia or really anywhere, but like I'm happy to go out in the other places like bird watching alone. But it's just something about being in the field with guns and being alone. It doesn't seem, in my opinion, safe for me especially. And as far as like, it's interesting as a hunter. And it's always like when people find out that like I do hunt, first like, oh, they always ask like, what's the biggest deer you got, or what what gun shooting? Oh, telling her, oh, just that. Like, yes, that's what I need. Like, I'm not trying to drop blah 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 on this. Like, it gets the job done. And then someone could be like, oh well, let me get some deer meat. Like, well, come out with me. I'll show you. But I mean, I ended up giving some people some anyway because I mean, if one time it was just me, that was the event, and so I was shared. But still, like, come experience it, and then you can ask these questions. Then like going back to like being in the field, like this, like transforms, like or transcend both being a hunter as well as a bird watcher. I like to call it my like Clark Kent effect or Superman effect. Like sometimes like going in hunting areas and scouting and birding, like I was out in Texas and I was going to like a well-known like birding spot, and like I walked out of my car and walked past like 4 or 5 people. No one said anything. Just scoping it out, seeing what birds I saw. Then I came back to my car, put on binoculars, and got my camera out. And the same 4 or 5 people walked by was like, oh, hey, how's it going? Like, what birds are you seeing? I was like, what? I just walked past this literally 30 seconds ago, and you didn't say not one thing to me. And now all of a sudden, I got a camera and binoculars. You can see me. So it's just like so baffling that it takes that for them to see me versus me just going out there by myself. I mean, sometimes the same thing happen as a hunter, like going to different outfits and stores. Like you get more, I feel like the help is better when they find out you're a hunter and you're not just some black man looking to buy ammo or a gun, but when you can, I guess, sort of so break into their circle and talk some of the same talk they talk, then it's a different atmosphere and welcomability when you break down the barrier, because now you're a hunter and not just someone that's looking for ammo and gun that happens to be black.
Yeah. I feel that with my whole soul. I feel like every time I go in, I have to like know way more than the average brand new hunter because they're like we come in, they see us, and then they have expectations for us.
Yeah, and
Because
as
they easily that kind.
as people of color, like you said a lot about like the ceiling, like what is the ceiling for Black people? When I think when we say like the outdoors are for everyone, that also means like we have to raise the floor too. Like we have to raise the entry point at which people think of people of color in the outdoors. Because right now, like that entry point is you don't belong here for a lot of us. And it's going to take several of the opposite experiences, it's going to take several of the opposite experiences for us to start to feel that safety. You just said when I still like I've been doing this a long time and I still don't feel safe going by myself hunting. And like that's a shame. Like we should be able to feel safe out there. So I think the challenge to anybody who's listening is how can we work together to create those positive experiences so that people can start to feel the safety in the outdoors? There's already plenty of other things in relation to safety that we have to worry about when we're going in the outdoors. Other people should not be one of them.
But exactly, yeah, well,
That's oftentimes my biggest fear is other people, not critters.
right, exactly. I like to call it the like black or people of color like tax. Like there's a great what is it ornithologist and writer called Troutman, and he like penned some like great tips for like black bird watchers, but it, like transcends over like the birding community as well as hunting community, like carrying like extra like carrier identification, um, wearing bright colors, having that smile on your face to show that you're nice. But things like that, that we have to go well and beyond, like just to one seem like we're friendly and approachable, and two to make it known that like we're not up to no good, and it's just frustrating that we have to go through all of that stuff, and still sometimes we might not be safe just because of the individuals that are out here. So yeah, it's definitely very unfortunate, and for me, like some of the things like I like to tell people, especially people they're not black, they're not people of color, is like use your privilege. Um, Call out individuals, your friends, family, if we see them. Pretty much ban trash, and doing stuff that um, is not okay. Whether that's the language they're using or the actions and the way they make people feel. Like the outdoors is for everyone, and everyone is welcome to the outdoors. I mean, we just see that through the doggone animal diversity, like um, how diverse is the animal kingdom and the human kingdom, like is the same way. But how come like we have a problem with other people that don't look like us going into some of the same spaces we are?
Yeah. So good. So good. Well, Alex, we're going to move into a segment, one of my favorites. And it is an absolute must anytime you're on the Unfiltered Outdoors podcast. So this is where it gets real fun. So we want to hear from you an unfiltered opinion about the outdoors. So what is an unfiltered hot take that you have when it comes to the outdoors, whether it's industry related, skills based, necessary gear, time to hunt, best practices, whatever it may be? What is just a raw, unfiltered thought that you have about the outdoors?
Oh man, there's so many. What can I say?
The most controversial one you have, you love it.
Um, okay, I'll say it. I'll say many individuals, probably ain't gonna like this, but many individuals that claim to be outdoorsmen or outdoors women, and they are conservative, are really some big punks. They are not standing up to the individual in this administration that are literally destroying the public lands, selling the public lands, or stealing public lands that they supposed to care about, which in turns will affect the animals that they're looking to hunt. I don't understand how you call yourself an outdoorsman or outdoors woman, and you're literally just sitting by idle while the very habitats and resources that the animals that you like to hunt depend on are being destroyed. Pretty soon will be open up to more pollution and are being sold off. You claim to be don't tread on me. Well, someone is literally stepping on your head and you're doing nothing.
Yeah.
Hey, man.
Yeah, you better preach, man. You're up there. Y'all be throwing my shoe at you right now.
Yeah, you was talking about not feeling comfortable going out by yourself. I think after that statement, you might want to bring one more person with you.
Yeah, I mean, but like how accurate there.
Yeah.
Talk about all the time like what we love. We love the outdoors. We love to be out. We love to experience the wildlife. We love having access to land that is just so important to the things that we love. But yet when the opportunity comes up for us to fight, we sit silent. I mean, you're absolutely right, Alex. And I think that at some point we have to realize that this land is going to be there. This land was here before a presidential election. This land will be here after the presidential election. Our obligation is to the land and to fight for that land. And if we call ourselves passionate and loving towards the outdoors, then we have a right to protect that.
Right.
And not just the right, but the obligation.
Yes, and that's the thing right there. That we are obligated to the land, especially if you are harvesting and receiving anything from the land, whether that's fish, berry picking, hunting. Like if you're taking anything from the land, you're being extractive, and you have an obligation to support and fight for the land and not just consume, but you have to give back. And that's in many different forms, from staying up to crazy politicians, to knocking down invasives, and also just managing the land in general. But if you're just performing extractive measures, like you're not doing anything for the land.
I think that's the hitting the nail on the head is the thing, that a lot of those folks that are quiet, it's because all they do is practice being extractive. They only consider themselves and they're not thinking about anyone else, not the future or anything. So I think you hit that right on the head.
Okay.
All right, to jump into my favorite segment, what is a piece of gear every time? It doesn't matter if you're birding, it doesn't matter if you're hunting, it doesn't matter if you're going out on a hike, whatever it is to be outside in nature. What is a piece of gear you absolutely could not live without?
Definitely. I mean, it's not really a gear, but it's snacks. You gotta have snacks.
Snacks. Oh, my snack boys.
Yes, you gotta have snacks.
I've been slipping. I'm getting better at it, though. I'm getting better at it.
When I tell you we have been giving Kenny such a hard time, because that answer has come up for several people. And
Yeah.
the first time that came up, Kenny goes, "That's the thing that I'm always forgetting is snacks." Like he brings treats for his dog, but he always it's about snacks for himself. Like for me, like that's one of the number one. That's one of the top priorities.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
What kind of snacks we talking?
Oh man, like I really enjoy blue Powerades. You gotta have a blue Powerade, but then like I like to make my own trail mix. So different trail mixes, then also like regular flavor like chewing gum, So but definitely Troutman, blue pirate, and then it depends. Like I usually like to have a big ish meal before I go out. That I make sure it's bathroom compliant, if you know what I mean.
Say can't be out there with the bubble guts.
Right, yeah. Maybe experience BGs in the sand. But yeah, so I have a big hearty meal that I know is gonna sustain me for most of it. And then like the snacks is just to supplement it. And then having a blue pirate and lots of water as well.
Yeah, love it, love it, love it. Well, Alex, man, we appreciate you so much. We love the work that you have done with Hunters of Color. We love the work that you have done in authoring books for children to start getting excited about critters in their state. The example that you've set for Black people that have a desire to be in the outdoor community, like everything about it, it's just an absolute stud in the space. Couldn't be more grateful for you jumping on the podcast with us just to share your experience. So if you haven't had the opportunity, Alex, do you want to share your socials as people to follow you and keep up with what's going on? I'll rephrase that again. I just had a stroke in the middle of that. All right, Alex, do you want to take an opportunity to share your social media handles so that people have the opportunity to catch up and see what's going on in your world?
Yes. So you can find me on all social media platforms under variations of Nature Owl, and that's in the number 8 TURE _ AL for Instagram. For TikTok, it's in the number 8 TURE AL. And for X, if you still use it, it's the same as Instagram and YouTube. And the number 8 TURE _ AL. So that's Nature _ Owl.
Absolutely. So make sure that you go and give Alex a follow and interact with his content. If you haven't yet, like or subscribe the Unfiltered Outdoors podcast. We'd love for you to do that. We've got some more incredible guests that we're going to continue to hop on the podcast. We got some more stories to tell. Got a lot of great content coming up that we feel like will be helpful for you in the outdoors. So we want to say thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Peace. And thank you, Alex. Thank you. Thank you for being the gift I needed for little Kenny. Yeah. Appreciate the work.